Yes, thank you for that introduction. Indeed, and thank you for the invitation to speak here today. And it's great to see so many people in the room and such a buzz around the event in general. As described, I'm going to just talk about some physical AI and unlocking intelligence to realise the Internet of Everything. So over the course of the last 20 years or so, the Internet of Things has really transformed the way that we work, the way that we communicate, and is now pretty much woven into the fabric of our society and how we operate. The advent of AI in that space helps us to leverage the data that we get from the Internet of Things, helps us to use it and enrich our decision making around it. However, it doesn't cover everything. Not every item is intelligent yet, and consequently, there's a whole swathe of places where we are not making use of that capability. So I want to talk today a bit about what we're doing in that space to provide new routes into more information that we can use in our decision making. For example, that within that, there are also global forces at play to support this. You see in market forces currently where consumers want to interact more strongly with their brand, and the brand wants to interact with the consumer, where people talk frequently about provenance of their goods, disposal, recycling. That's also supported by regulatory forces. You see the digital product passport coming in where provenance of goods is required. There are packaging and waste regulations. I don't have all of the waste details, I'm afraid, but there are regulations coming in about disposal. So you need to know where your packaging is going to after somebody has bought your product. That is not possible to do currently at an item level for things that you buy in, say, the supermarket or in the chemists. You can do it with things you buy at Apple, fair enough, but you can't do it with everyday items. And if you want to be able to do that, you're looking at a scale of capability that's well beyond what we see at the moment with electronics. You'll be looking at how do I introduce this onto items and not make it part of the problem? So how do I do that sustainably? And how do I overcome some of the other challenges in the sector to do with geographical concentration of location and reduce the risk of geopolitical tensions? Is there a way of helping to democratize production in the semiconductor industry? So you start with the cloud and you build off the cloud. That gives you that framework, that infrastructure. You move through to edge compute, where you're interacting with electronic items in your home or in your office, starting to see smart factories, smart cities. But beyond that, you have item level intelligence, which is really where Pragmatic is focused. How do you introduce that small amount of intelligence on other products that are not currently have that capability to connect them into the same fabric that in society of that interconnected world, so that they can provide information back, they can provide benefit at both the individual and the societal level for your own decision making in your own house, but also for the organisations for which you work and for society in general. So just in case you're not aware what Pragmatic does, because I shouldn't assume that everybody knows who we are, we make flexible electronic circuits. We have a headquarters in Cambridge, and we have a manufacturing facility near Durham, which is the country's only 300mm manufacturing facility for semiconductors in the UK. And we make a flexible chip that, in this particular instance, we use in an NFC products, so that you can communicate some intelligence to consumers or to and interact with the consumer, for example. And what's novel about what we're doing is that we've looked at the use case that we have, which is a small amount of intelligence. We're not trying to build a supercomputer here, and we can strip back the process steps to just the number you need to do the function you want to do. Don't overcomplicate it. And because we've done that, the process is more sustainable because we use less water, we use fewer harmful chemicals, we use less gas than you would see in a traditional environment. But we've also made something that is flexible. So in the use case where you have, say, a bottling plant, where the bottles go through, and I'm probably seen inside the factory or that kind of program, they're not thinking about the electronics in that instance. They're thinking about what does the bottle need. So you need to be able to cope in those environments. So this situation here where we've got a tag on a coffee cup, you bought the coffee, you didn't buy the tag. So you have to look at how can I be robust in that environment? And their flexible electronic solution really helps to play well. So there are many near-term opportunities for the technology. And we see a lot of engagement with people in consumer packaged goods because it's the type of product where you can track through your supply chain. You can see the provenance of the item if you're the purchaser, but you can also look at stock control from the industrial side. You can also look at stock control, manage your logistics, understand what you've got where. And once a package is disposed of, you can see in the waste stream that it still knows what it is. So as long as it's still intact at the point it reaches a recycling facility, you can start to segregate waste, and you can start to see how your consumer engagement could be not just about having the look at the brand, but also about getting points for depositing your rubbish in the right place and that kind of thing. You can see how it could interact like that. And then in things like personal care, it would play a transformative role in things like wound management. You need specific skills to change dressings in certain application spaces in certain situations in healthcare. And if you can monitor whether the wound is healing without changing the bandage, then you don't disrupt that healing process, and you can do it without needing specialist intervention, only in the cases where you actually need to have it. So you can make better use of the skill sets in society, better use of your resources in whichever of the industries it is. And then you can extend that further into future applications. There are many possibilities in places like VR and AR, and wearables, and where space is a constraint, or you need some flexibility, or weight is a problem. Biological computation offers the opportunity for lab on a chip, which then also pays into patient-centric healthcare because you can make that more accessible in more areas, and then leveraging the existing situation with the cloud in order to provide that data into a system and make your cities, for example, even smarter than they already are. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour through what we're doing at Pragmatic and how that plays into that, crossing that digital to physical divide, really where physical AI is playing a part, making more use of the information that you can, making more information available that you can then use to make better decision making. But it does mean that we'll be moving from billions of items that you traditionally have with the Internet of Things. We're moving that through to trillions of items when you've got item level intelligence, and using that insight-rich data to really inform what decisions we're taking, and doing that at a carbon footprint that is compatible with that sustainability requirement that comes with all of this, which is partly what this is driving. So now the bit about me. Oh no, I missed that bit first, sorry. That supports our mission. So our mission is about using the technology and supporting our customers to get richer insights into their data sets and help them and help people in general and our planet at scale. Okay, right, now the bit about me. Sorry, Helen. Right, so as you've seen from the other speakers, we're asked to talk a bit about ourselves as well. That was what's Pragmatic been doing in the last 15 years, and where are we now, and what do we see our business doing? I have also been with Pragmatic for 15 years, and at the beginning, it didn't look like that, because we were in that lab space in the middle. I found that photograph on my phone when I was asked to, what do we look like before? That's December 2013, according to my iPhone. And then on the right-hand side is where we are now. So we have transitioned from a lab that was, I'm going to use the phrase Heath Robinson in nature, in that central picture, to a facility that is using traditional semiconductor equipment in that right-hand fab, clean room suits, overhead transport vehicles, and so forth, where we are now. So that is not only a journey for the organisation, that's also a journey for the people in the organisation as you transition from those two places. And so a couple of learnings I've had whilst we've been doing that. And the first one within that is clarity of purpose. So when I first started at the organisation, there were 6 people, and my children at the time were 6 months and a year and a half, or 2. She was 2. She's now 19. But that meant I was kind of had some constraints about what I could and couldn't do. And I went for my interview and I told them what my constraints were. I said, I can only work these hours, I can only work these days. If they're sick, it's me, I have to take the time off. And I was very clear about what I was able to do and also what I was at that point not able to do. And we came to a mutually acceptable solution about how much I could work and how that might evolve over time as the children aged. But as a result of that, we started on the right foot of this is how we're going to work. And that's something I've then helped to drive through the organisation as we've expanded. Because in my case, it was because my children were small. But in other people's cases, there might be caring requirements you've got for other family members. You might have health situations. You might have religious requirements. There are all sorts of reasons why individuals can't work a standard 9-to-5 day. And if you don't work out how you're going to accommodate that, you can't make yourself a diverse workforce. And a diverse workforce is absolutely critical if you want your organisation to succeed, because you need all of that challenge, you need all of those opinions before you go to the marketplace, because somebody's going to tell you. You just need them to be inside your building, not outside your building to do that. So the first bit is about making sure that you're clear on what you can provide to the organisation and what you need the organisation to do for you, but also paying that forward into the next generation, going to events like this, helping understand what the broader picture is across all of the diversity aspects, and pretty much everybody be able to put themselves in some diverse category, and because it comes down to the individual in the end. So that's part of the flexible approach. And then the other learning I would have from that is, it's going to sound a little bit countered, I suppose, is especially for startups, and if anybody works in startups, you'll see this. Startups thrive on innovation. And the first thing that happens usually is they go, let's just do it all again from scratch. Let's do it all new. And I'd say also, as a business, you have to be clear about what your value, where's the value, what's your innovative thing, and focus on that. And if you don't need it to be innovative because somebody already did it, then take that thing they already did. So the fab I showed on the previous page, we use entirely standard semiconductor equipment, which means spare parts are available. It means people to fix it are available. It means we have people we can hire who already know how to run the tools. That doesn't happen if you build the tool yourself. And similarly at the other end, for probably more applicable to people in this room, we use a standard EDA flow as well. Same rationale applies, people are familiar with it, you're part of their career journey, you're not a dead end, so you can attract the right talent and you can help other people to adopt your technology in that case because they're familiar with those things. None of those things needed reinventing, so we did not reinvent them, and we focused on the things we did need to do. So I'd say in both of those cases, clarity is what's important. Somebody said this already today, that what got you to here won't necessarily get you where you want to go in future. So skills are important. The depth of skill is important, but also the breadth of skill, and that's not necessarily the same people. So when I started, we had 6 people, so decisions were made by sitting around the coffee machine and saying, should we do this? And everyone went, yes, and then we did it. That was it. That's all that happened. Didn't necessarily write that down. Regretting that a bit now. When you've got 350 people, that's not how you can work. You have to take that depth of experience and cascade the breadth a different way through the way that you have systems to support it. And you have to grow those so that they're fit for purpose. And then you have to have the rigor to apply them. And that can be tricky if you come from an R&D background, but I'm learning on that one. But you have to recognise, where do we need to do this? What values do we need to keep? Flexibility in the workforce. And what values do we need to evolve because the organisation has evolved? Writing things down. And part of the way that we do this is by positive intent. So if you've heard me speak before, you've probably heard me say this. What I tell my teams is things go wrong. They do go wrong. But the person that's telling you it went wrong, or the person that made the mistake, They didn't get up this morning thinking, do you know what? I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to make your life really hard. That's not what they did. Almost certainly what happened was there was a miscommunication or a misunderstanding. For example, we have the phrase POR at work. You've probably in this room, most people would know that as power on reset. That's what half of our company knows it as. The other half knows it as process of record. So you can have two people in one room talking about the same acronym, meaning totally different things. And you have to get past that kind of situation, and you have to bring it in. It's a what problem, not a who problem. So the way to do that is to treat the situation with positive intent. Don't assume the other person intentionally got it wrong to make your life harder, because they really didn't. But if you can step back from that and say, right, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? How do we fix it? What's the system we need to have in place in order to not have that go wrong again? Then that's how you build your organisation, to have systems that work for the people and make sure that it's in place. So I talk about that a lot at work, and I think it's really critical, especially when you end up with a diverse skill set with people who are highly experts in their own thing, but don't have the industry knowledge across the difference between process gases and photolithography equipment all the way through to designing an AI chip. So I leave you with that thought. It really brings down to clarity of what you want. And if you don't have it, you'll end up with an awful lot of things you don't want. Okay.